All right. Well, no. Uh-oh. Huh. Okay. So here we go. Copy live streaming link. There we go. Do that. I'm going to put that on the tweeters. Hoorah, Gregory. How are you today?
Doing great. How about yourself, Dominic? It's a great day.
I just talked to Monica. Are you you got your certification in admin already, correct?
I've got my admin, and I've been dragging my feet on the marketing class. So back in December, I decided, okay, I'm going to get this thing done. I want to go to try to reschedule it, and Salesforce was rolling the next version of the exams out on Web Assessor. So I didn't get a chance to reschedule, so I finally did that yesterday, and so looks like first week of February I'm gonna get this marketing cloud email one done.
Well, I was telling Monica today, like, so when we took the class back in August,
yeah,
I had a lot of juggling going on, and I wasn't paying attention that close to Spider, and I didn't do all the exercises and yada yada yada. Right? I even had like a 3-hour meeting in the middle of class one day when there's only a 6-hour class.
That sounds like a normal work day.
Yeah, my normal distractedness. It's like the same way I treated the admin class when I first taught it. So, I mean, when I first took it, and then waited a year to take the class. So what I have as an instructor is I have the training materials. So I'm going to do the same thing whether anybody's attending or not, but I'm going to teach the class, the marketing class again, just to go through the material. And I know I got to focus. What I need to do is see if we can get another demo org so I can practice the exercises. But that's what I'm going to try to do. And I'm going to do that after this class is done.
Right.
So again, if you want to participate, I've kind of figured out how to do that with this class. But the difference is I'm doing it to learn, because that's what that's how I learn.
Well, that's how you learn the best, is to teach it.
Yeah, right. I mean, at least for me. So
I'm thinking about dropping Elliot a note, because I've had some personal stuff go on in the meantime, in the midst of all this. My wife's mother, well, she's dying. We've had to bring hospice in. She can't be left alone, and so that's been something that I wasn't necessarily planning on. It was going to happen eventually, but it just happened when it happened. So I've had a couple obstacles with that, and of course the whole COVID thing going on. Anyway, one way or another, I'm going to get it done.
There you go. All right. Well, good. I want to get it done too. I'm probably, actually, I was talking to Monica today. I'm probably going to go for my advanced admin cert just in between.
Right.
But that I just need to practice and study a little bit on that and make sure that I understand more about the territories and a couple of little things that they talk about that I just don't do very often. So I'll see if that works. But
did she tell you her and one of my classmates from my admin cohort, Miravis, Brandy Randall, all three of us are in this fellowship with Sense Corp through Hiring Our Heroes.
Yeah, she told me about that. I started the application process today because, for two reasons. One, as a partner, I'm going to try to first I'm going to try it as a person and get, it's a good little deal to get experience because I want to learn from other consulting companies that could teach me how to be a better consultant. I don't have what I would consider to be a good formal process for supporting my customers in a consulting capacity.
Right.
And so working with somebody, like I haven't worked with Jira, I haven't worked with a bunch of these tools there, but there's that. And then on the other side, if Salesforce is going to cut the check, I'd hire you to work for me, Gregory, like, for free. Like I can get your help to help, leverage the right SFP, have the right fellow work with me. Cause what happens to me is I get caught up in everything there is to do instead of the next thing there is to do. So that's my little personal challenge in that regard. So anyway,
you know who's been doing the training thing for a while? I don't know if you've talked to her. Yeah, is Tani Long.
Who's she?
She was my instructor for my admin cohort, but she has contracted with Salesforce for many years as doing, Salesforce training.
I do training.
And then of course she volunteered her time to teach Maravis.
Right. I'm in the same boat. I just I can't say it on the recording. I just don't get a lot of work from that channel. So for me, when I figure out how to get work on that channel, that'd be great. But I'm working with Kevin a little bit. Kevin Cochran is a great dude. We'll get it all worked out. So you can see my screen, right? Lesson 5?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. So we're going to jump in. I'm not going to do any review because you can watch the videos. Did you get a chance to did you get access to the video?
I looked at part of it and then I had to take care of some other stuff yesterday. So, but I looked at part of it. I'm gonna look at them both over the weekend.
I'm only worried that you got access. What you do with that, I just want to make sure because I'm delving into all new points and clicks, and so that means I could make mistakes because I may not have fully tested it.
Right.
So as long as you got that means. If you got access, that means something's working, and I'm happy with that. So,
I got an email from YouTube.
Oh, good. So that's part of what I did. Like I set it up a couple different ways, and then, but Amy couldn't get access, so hopefully she's got a Google account now that she can log into and make all that work.
Right.
I might need to take a break, and I also scheduled this for 3 hours, so I went ahead and just made it a 3-hour session.
Yeah.
And I scheduled I might have to take a quick break because I haven't broken yet since I've been sitting at my desk for 12. That's not the healthiest thing in the world, but I don't
sure.
Anyway, we'll go. So let's talk about data access on Salesforce and talk about how this dynamic works. So the first thing that when we think about access to data, we always want to think about what the profile allows. And that profile is an object by object set of permissions that we call the CRED, the create, read, edit, delete, or the 4 standard object permissions. And depending upon what your organization allows, and I mean that not only just your Salesforce org, but what your company really wants you to be able to see and do, the CRED is at the core of what you can do for all records in that object. When it comes to record access, then that's determined by ownership and sharing, right? So every record has an owner, and that owner is has the full access to that record, limited only by the permissions granted of the profile and permission sets. Now, with that, record ownership rolls up the chain, right? And I'm going to, I went, and by the way, I have the link. Do you have the link to the trailhead for all this material? By the way, did you get that yesterday?
I don't remember seeing that.
I'm gonna put it in the chat. It's in a lot of places right now. It's going to be in the YouTube video. description. It's in the calendar invite. And of course, I'm putting it in the chat right now. So in case you want to practice this, you can, of course, use the Trailhead Playgrounds, but you can also use that demo org that there's a link for.
Yeah, and I did get one of those yesterday.
And that has what it does. It has universal containers and all of these people in it.
Right.
Already
That looked like the org that I would have had access to after I took the class for like a month after.
Correct. Exactly. It looks like that. I don't know how long it lasts. Here we go. All right. Let me know if you can hear me okay, because I don't have a special microphone, and I tend to yell into my office when I don't have a microphone close by, like I'm not holding the phone in my face. So I'm not doing any of that. So anyway, so record ownership is controlled by the owner primarily, and role hierarchy, usually the full access of a record rolls up the chain, and then of course sharing rules share across the lane, and that lane can be done automatically group to group with rules, or manually with teams or manual sharing. So that's where you share read write only access, whereas full access, transfer, read write delete, transfer goes up the chain. Now field level security at the field level is controlled by the profile. So if you've got a profile that you've hidden a field, let's take social security numbers, a great one to think about. If you collect people's social security numbers, you probably need to hide that field from most people. You probably even need to encrypt that field for an added level of security. But users in the same profile, if you hide that field, all users, it's a blanket access to that field, whether they can read or edit that field, is controlled by the profile. So if you have an individual user that needs to see a field that's hidden or limited by their profile, then you need to give them a permission set in order to do that. Does that make sense? So that's really the way that goes. So that's how data access works. And in the sharing architecture, and I want to make sure I get my PowerPoint here. So this is a little more, we talked about this, a little more precise way to look at it. At the bottom of the chart is the organization-wide defaults. The OWD controls access to records. You don't OWN. And then it comes back, more globally, more users get access through the role hierarchy. It's sort of a blanket easy button, if you will, in order to give record access. And then you create rules for groups of records that either by ownership or by criteria, where it always happens with all the users in that group. And then, of course, team and manual sharing gives you more precise methods of sharing individual records with individual people. And so teams is a little less individual, but it is selectable. Team and manual sharing is selectable. So it's a more precise way to deliver a record to a user, right? So that's the sharing architecture, works that way. And of course, we'll get into a discussion of how this works in this presentation when you limit data access.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive looking at that pyramid. Why did when they came up with that pyramid, do they not make that pyramid like inverse, like put org-wide defaults at the top where it's the narrowest, because that's the most restrictive access, and then working it. I mean, it seems like you broaden your base and you can see more things as you go down. Visually, I'm thinking like, well, that kind of opens up more and more and more data. I don't know why they designed it like that.
I don't either. And I
had to think of, when I see this diagram, I've always had to think of it in reverse, the inverse of that.
The point of this diagram, you might even mute yourself. The point of this diagram is to say there's way more precision as you move up the pyramid versus
Right.
down the pyramid. So because the organization-wide defaults affects every user, there's less precision in that,
Right.
right? So, and you know, Salesforce comes out of the box with everybody being able to do everything. And I like to say they do that because they got to pay for the most, they have to pay for the tallest building sitting on an earthquake fault. And that's expensive. So they need the money and they need people to be able to access and use Salesforce without any, to no limit. When you start adding limits, you got to add back the exceptions. And so the role hierarchy has a greater impact on the exceptions because it's everybody in the role above you. So there's less precision in that because the only precision is how you move people into the roles.
See, and I think I just clicked how I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this from a user perspective.
No, this is from a data perspective.
Yeah, and that's what I've kind of got to go back through and train my mind to be able to do is look at this from a, like you, as you suggested, a data perspective. That would make this a little bit clearer, I think. I mean, I'm just telling you that because that's, as a student, that's how I would be seeing it.
Yep, there you go. So in this example, we're talking about how Universal Containers has determined that new and open positions should be visible to all users, but a closed position should only be visible to the recruiter and the related hiring manager and the managers above both. So now when we add a condition to how people see it, it automatically should trigger sharing rules, should be the default methodology to be able to see those records. Because the only way you can control record access by condition is having the default set to the most restrictive and a rule that opens it up to the right people based on the condition of the record, right? So that's where that other graphic, when we looked at it, that other graphic that we looked at that had this condition, like the status of a record. Right. So that means the condition of the data, which, by the way, is not the way most human beings think about stuff when it relates to data. And I mean that like the stuff of data is where we try to bridge the gap between people and technology. So in order to meet the requirements, like for a closed position should be available to the recruiter, the hiring manager, and the managers above both. You got to think about that. That's two dynamics, right? One of that is a sharing rule. So if I share a record with the recruiter and the hiring manager, everybody above that person gets to see the record because that's what the role hierarchy does.
Right.
Now, they don't inherit the ownership privileges unless the subordinate owns the record. They inherit the shared privileges because that's all that was given to the subordinate. So that's where the dynamic comes into play, where the role hierarchy and the sharing rules meet.
So question for you. Let's say that now I've got a report that I'm going to put on a dashboard.
Yep.
And I'm the author of the report. I'm, let's say, the VP of operations, but I want my subordinates to be able to see it. Now, in that report, I can always see data, though, that the security model is allowing me to see. Is that correct?
Right.
So, but now, what about roll-up data?
So here's the rule. Here's the rule I want you to think about. And I think about it from the private model, right? So there's you, and then there's your subordinate, correct?
Right.
So whatever the record you're looking at is, you have access to everything your subordinate has access to.
Right.
And I mean that visibility and editability and ownership. If they own the record, you own the record.
Right.
If the record's been shared with them, it's also been shared with you,
Right.
because everything they got rolls up to you. And that's really the simplicity of the role hierarchy. If somebody
Right.
shares something with them or they own something, it's all yours.
Right.
The same way it is for them. And the distinction between ownership and shared is, if I share my car with you, you can't sell it, right? You don't have the ability to delete it or transfer ownership, right? So if somebody shares something with them, you inherit that sharing. That's it. And if somebody shares something with you, they don't get it, because it's only shared with you and everybody above you. So
Right.
it flows up, not down. It's the chain of command, distinct from, and you know this in the military, chain of communication.
Yeah. So my question was geared towards was, let's say I have a roll up field that I'm displaying on a report, and it says we did $1.5 million worth of business this past quarter. But that's all I see. I don't, as a subordinate looking at that report down in the hierarchy, I can only see the top level. I can't see maybe necessarily the individual details of records that I would not have had access to. Is that a correct assumption?
Well, you said a couple of things. Let's break down what you said. So the first thing is a roll-up summary field.
Right.
And whether you see, so you'll see the data contained in that roll-up summary field, because the roll-up summary field just counts the children and displays that and stores that as data. So that is controlled by your access to that account record or that parent record, right? Whatever's rolling up to that, if you have access to that, then you'll see that, because that's showing, that's on the record you're viewing.
Right.
The subordinate records, the child records, whether you can see those individual details or not, really depends upon the visibility of those other objects. So that's controlled by the other object organization-wide defaults and your profile access to that other object.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was assuming, that I might be able to see in a report on a dashboard a high level, but that does not necessarily give me access to data
below it.
below.
And I want you to be careful, because hypotheticals can really throw off what we're teaching in the moment, because hypotheticals bring in other variables that are not what we're talking about.
Right.
And they're useful, but not on the test.
Right.
You got to be careful of hypotheticalizing on the test, because again, we talked about that. If you add hypothetical variables that aren't addressed in the question, you might miss the right answer in the answer selection.
Right.
And the goal of the test, getting certified, is to eliminate all the wrong answers from your possible choices.
Right.
Until you're left with one or two, and then increases your odds of getting the right one. So here's what this, let's answer these questions, because that'll kind of define the requirements and how you think about developing the answers, right? So what should the org-wide default for positions be given this scenario?
Great.
See if I can draw some of this out. So we've got a position record, right? And it's got two conditions. It's got an open and a closed position. I'm just going to call it 0 or 1, right? It's got two different conditions. That the owner of that record has a boss in the role hierarchy, right? So what we're saying is new and open positions should be visible to all users.
Right.
So
Top to
when
bottom.
everybody in the org is going to see it when it's open. Right?
Right.
So that's a condition of the record. And the only thing that changes by condition is a rule, because the rule is in this condition or out of this condition determines how others see it.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's all others or one other, but and that's a group of one or many, doesn't matter. And that means it's going to get shared with everybody in the hierarchy. That's everybody.
All right.
By infinity. When it's closed, that's a different condition and it limits who it is. So if you're going to limit it from any subset of everybody, that means the OWD has to be set to private.
Okay.
Because there's no other way to make it private. The only way to hide a record is to have it already hidden. It's got to be hidden. Otherwise, it's either hidden or not hidden. It's either editable or not editable by everybody. And if it's editable by everybody, then none of this applies. But if you want to prevent one person from editing it, you got to make it read only. And if you want to prevent one person from seeing it, you got to start with private. So that's that condition. Who should own positions? It ought to be the recruiter.
Right.
Why? Because they're at the lowest level of the chain. And they are the ones who are editing that record. So that's going to be the recruiter. And if you want their boss to see it, which is what they said, right? I want the managers above.
That satisfies that.
Then making sure, because positions is a custom object, the answer to that is yes. The only way to grant access, if it's private, to their manager and above is to grant access using hierarchies. That's the way you open up that sharing. Now, recruiters, other recruiters get access to closed positions based on a sharing rule. So if it's a small set of recruiters and they want access to this record when it's closed, then you basically have a group called recruiters. And you share that record based on the condition with all the other recruiters.
And that can be cross-hierarchical, right?
Well, it's just a group. You're really sharing it. It's a conditional rule. So you're saying you're defining who the group is, right? And because you share it with the recruiters and they all share the same manager, sharing rolls up the chain too. So if I share a record with you, everybody above you can see it.
Right.
If I share read-only access to that record, then everybody above you gets read-only access to that record. Because that's all I've shared. All I've said is you can ride the bus, you can't drive it. And anybody you bring on the bus that's above you, they can only ride the bus. They can't drive it because they don't have, you were not given that ticket. You can't give it to anybody else. So you're limited by what you've been given.
Right.
So recruiters get access to closed positions by a sharing rule. And that means it also defaults up to their managers. Now, to open positions, recruiters get access to open positions through really, instead of condition, just by ownership. So you're saying anybody that owns this, any recruiter that owns a position record is shared with any recruiter, no matter what the condition. So it's shared by an ownership rule, not a conditional rule.
Right.
Share it with everybody with a conditional rule, but you could just share it by an ownership rule with all the other recruiters. So this one would be an ownership-based sharing rule. That way it covers both conditions, open, closed, new, it doesn't matter. They get to see all the position records all the time because you're sharing all those records. So when all users get access to new and open positions, that's a sharing rule. That's the sharing rule we're talking about. but
Right.
it's based on condition. The data condition of that record. And again, this is why it's so important that people keep their records up to date. From an operational standpoint, every Salesforce user needs to have this habit of updating their records, because
Yeah.
the condition of the record matters for other workflow, right? If you sell something but you don't mark an opportunity closed won, accounts receivable is never going to see it to send an invoice, which means you're never going to get paid as a salesperson, which is how I train salespeople. Like, you know, hey, you don't have to do this unless you want to get paid. And then their minds go, what do I got to do to get paid? Yes, this is called the paycheck. So I rely on PCP for salespeople to keep their records up to date. It's called the Paycheck Continuation Program. And it's called Salesforce, not Sales Ask. See how it's spelled? Force is how we force you to do it. And then, of course, hiring managers get access to closed positions and open positions by a sharing rule. Right? Because that's how they get access to it. They're not in the role hierarchy of the ownership methodology. So they got to get it through a sharing rule. Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Perfect. All right, cool. All right. So there's an exercise here. I'll leave it. So if you're going to do the exercise, if you're going to do an exercise, pause the tape, look at it, and then you got to basically set those OWDs to private and create the criteria rule that gives access to the new and open positions. And then the next exercise would be to, I guess, to create the rule for otherwise, for the closed positions that the hiring managers need to see. So let's see. What's the next part? So this one, limiting data access, again, is now going to talk, I think, about field level security, right? Because we want to track salary for each position. And while that should be visible to the recruiter, the hiring manager and the hiring manager's boss, the recruiter should control the salary data. And that the only way to control a field is field level security. So you got to, if salary is a separate object, then you can set it with the OWD to make it private.
Private, yeah.
And then not only is it private, then you got to create the rules to give it back, right? So, so you got to create the object, decide who gets visibility to it, add the custom fields, and then adjust field level security. Now, you know, all of that in the real world is that level of security is only as good as the people who don't talk. We still don't have a way to prevent people from talking. So again, this is saying, we talked about it before. If you want to hide a social security number, which tool would you use? Do you remember what it is?
You have an encrypted field.
Well, encryption hides it from hackers and other people.
Right.
How would you hide it from people?
Would take it off of their detail view.
Well, you could take it off the page layout, but then but then you have to create another page layout for the users that do need to see it. Now you're managing 2 page layouts instead of 1. So a quick and easy way to manage a page layout to hide fields is field level security.
Right. So it would be a hidden field.
Yeah. So think of field level security as a substitute for managing another page layout. You can just hide the field completely.
Right.
Based on the profiles. So that's right. And then that's how that works. So,
and depending upon their role in the hierarchy, I can assign a particular page layout to that role then.
No, you don't assign. Be careful with the words you use. You cannot assign a page layout to a role. You can only assign a page layout to a profile, PP.
Oh, okay.
Page layout, PL, affects, sorry. So the profile controls the page layout, another P.
Right.
And if you assign more than one, you can only assign one page layout to a profile unless you have record types, which basically creates, I think I like to think about it. When you create a record type, to me, you're creating another object within that object, so you can control another page layout per record type.
Right.
And along with, so when you do add record types, you add, you can add a page layout to a profile, and you can also change the pick list values for that record type, which is like a controlling pick list value.
Right.
You're controlling the choices someone has for the pick list fields without having to create a new pick list field. So you're managing those choices that the user has inside the same data, so that you keep and maintain data integrity and data consistency. So the right records are getting the right choices selected. They're getting from better choices. You're limiting the choices to the more right choices for what you're doing. Right. And look, here's how we wouldn't need any of this stuff if humans were better at data. Right? If humans were better at selecting and updating data, and you would just trust that they would make the right choices. But humans aren't reliable in that regard, not across the board. So you want to limit their choices, which is why you're not using a spreadsheet,
Right.
So this is a big project, this little implement this data security, right? So the requirements are giving users access to run reports and look at dashboards, which we haven't talked about yet. I didn't bring it up. We'll talk more about that at the end of this little series. Prevent users from deleting records in the recruiting application, and set the pay grade field so only specific users can view it. So in this type of exercise, if you run into trouble, remember, send me an email at support@salesandtechnology.com.
Okay.
So that because you got to work it out. That's a work it out exercise that Salesforce provides. And they're good practice, by the way. They're just damn good practice. Now, this section, I think, will take us to the end of the day. And the other folks said, but this is now because using the user interface isn't security, but it does act like security, right? Like you said, if you take a field off the page layout, you fundamentally hidden that field. However, not actually. So
a hacker like me will find that field.
Yeah, a guy, yeah, right. That's right. It is by design a way to not it's sort of a way to not use the user interface gives you some flexibility, right? So you can, depending on, and with lightning pages, which is what this, we don't get deep in it. We might get deeper into it. There's even other features that you can use to control access to data without locking down the security model, which would have its own impact otherwise with how you run your business. So it's an intermediary way to do it. And so let's just look at the requirements, right? So we got some new objects, we got some new tabs, and the company wants to create a simpler way to access all the tabs with a single click. And so they want to make sure that users are able to easily access those custom objects and create. So the company needs to create new custom tabs that will like basically present that data without everything else overwhelming. Because that's one of the principles of all of these features is so that you limit what the user can see, not just for security, but for actual uh, ease of use. Right? It makes it, you don't have to clutter through everything to get to what you need to do your job. So you're really, it's that in the military we call it a need to know basis.
Right.
It's easier to do your job if you're just looking at all the stuff you need to know. Not it's a difference between going to a library and having a chapter in a book that you're looking at, right? And looking at that one page in the SOP that's telling you what to do for this situation. So you're filtering out so the person can focus to do their job. So we're going to have to create in this section, we're going to create a custom application with a custom logo, a custom object tab, modify the page layout, add the chatter feed to the custom object, test all of that on the Salesforce mobile app so they can get it on the go as well, and then create some quick actions to make it easier for them to get things done, right? So that's this part of the declarative model that we're going to be working with. And that's really just the context of what we're working in. So again, there's a lot of other things in these other two boxes, validation rules, process flows, all that, and object fields and relationships. All of that applies to the org, but not what we're teaching, right? So that's just where we're at with it, right? So let's talk about custom apps and tabs. So first, let's start with the definition. All an application in Salesforce is a collection of items that work together to help somebody do their job. It's all it is, right? It's a selection that you've created this little package of tabs that and whatever's on those tabs so that it looks and feels like the user that's using it, that it's designed for them and their job, right? So you got the name of the app, a description, maybe an image. And this, look, I'm gonna be honest. When I first went on a project and I didn't really understand an app, I remember going on, there was the default sales app, and then the company had created a custom application. And they both had a leads tab.
All right.
And in my mind, I thought, oh, wait a minute, I'm creating a lead. And as a trainer, I'm like, is the lead, this only lasted a little bit, but in the beginning, I thought, oh no, I might have created the lead in the wrong tab, and therefore the lead wasn't going to like somehow or another it affected the underlying data. That's
Right.
not how it works, right?
Right.
If you have an object and a tab,
it's the same object in another tab.
It's the same spreadsheet, if you will. It's the same database throughout
Right.
the entire org, no matter where it is and how it looks, right? So that I learned that the hard way initially, and then when I learned more about Salesforce, it was great. So
Nobody was messing with you renaming tabs to be
right.
point to other objects, right?
now, for my defense, the other trainer that was telling me about it, they didn't know what they were doing either, and they scared, they didn't know, and they they were like, oh no, you got to use it in this one because otherwise it won't show up. I'm like, okay, I believed them until I finally figured it out. But the things that you are doing is you're making it look, basically you're changing the look and feel for the user for what they're trying to do. Right. So you could change the name, the description, the image, the colors, the style of navigation. So it could be from a console to a regular standard navigation, the utility items at the bottom of the screen, and even the navigation items that are there by default for the user. So
right, you could have those tabs be named anything you want to, but still be populating into standard objects.
Well,
custom objects.
You can't change the tab label. It's a all or none, but you could change what tabs are there by default, the navigation.
Oh, okay.
Not the names of the tabs. So A custom tab is like, because you can create a custom object and the users have no access to it, right? It does not just because you create an object, you don't get a tab. You got to create the tab
Right.
so that users can get access to the records in that tab. That custom tab goes with a custom object. Now there are tabs. What you said before, I just want to be very accurate. There are tabs you could create. I don't want to call it a workaround. It's kind of a work through. You could, at some level, get you might be able to rename something like in a visual force tab. You have the control visually of what it is, but fundamentally it's the same object, right? I don't know. I don't want to get too anyway. So 5 types of custom tabs. So if you have a custom object, you create a custom tab. If you have a web tab, that displays an external web app or web page in a user interface. So you basically you're containing a web page inside your Salesforce. So it's just so you don't have to open up another Chrome tab, which could be problematic in some ways. Visual Force tab really gives you the control of a web developer. So you open that tab and you can have it present anything you want because you're developing the Visual Force language, which is really Salesforce's version of HTML,
right?
To display anything you want, both on the web and inside your org. And
Is there anything really related to Visual Force on the exam?
Knowing it, not doing it. Knowing about it more than doing with it is what I would say. Understand that there is Visual Force and that it displays, knowing that there's a tab potentially. I don't remember the exam. It's been months since I finally took it. The Lightning page tabs are displays Lightning pages in Lightning apps and the Salesforce mobile app. And then, of course, Lightning component tabs, which are a function of having your My Domain. And when you say My Domain, in Salesforce, you can customize your Lightning domain so that when you log in, and you do this in Classic too, you can have like mine to log into my Salesforce. It's winning.my.salesforce.com. That's where I go to log in.
Right.
I named it Winning. I like it Winning. I use Winning. I was Charlie when I built it. Charlie was doing his thing. Whatever. Charlie, the knucklehead from 2.5 Men.
Right.
What's his last name?
Charlie Sheen?
Huh?
Charlie Sheen?
Charlie Sheen. Yeah, Charlie Sheen. That knucklehead. Anyway, but I like it. It keeps me reminding me it reminds me to keep my tiger blood healthy. Anyway. And so custom tabs also have a tab style. That's all you got to know about it, right? So in this example, you need to create we're going to create a custom recruiting application. Now I'm developing, like I said, if you run into any trouble doing that, you need to create the custom object first.
Right.
And then you need to create a custom tab for the review object. Let's see. So that review object might already be in there, and then reorder the tabs for your user account. We'll talk about that just anyway. So now I got to tell you something. I'm a list view fanatic, and I don't mean fanatic like I'm a fanatic in that I think no matter where you go in the Salesforce ecosystem, you should always look to see that the users you're working with are using their list views. List views are the keys to the productivity kingdom. how else can you, and when I think about that, and when I say that, and I'm saying this for the sake of the recording as much as anything else,
Right.
but the list views are the only way to chunk the data that you're going to use based on the kind of work you're going to do right now. And I mean that from every user. So you remember a guy named Tommy Hopkins, Gregory?
Yeah.
Tommy Hopkins is an old sales trainer. Old meaning he was in his late 40s when I started watching him in the 80s, in the late 80s. So he's an old sales trainer. And when I read his book on how to sell, there was a question he asked in that book that I have been asking myself now for almost 35 years. And that question is, what's the most productive thing I can do right now? And when you decide what that thing is, you need to have a list of things to do that with. Would you agree? So for example,
Yeah.
if I'm at the grocery store and I ask myself, what's the most productive way to shop for groceries? What's your answer? How do you know to shop for groceries the most productive way? What do you need to shop for groceries the most productive way?
Need the items and what aisle they're in.
You need your list. And if you have the items in the aisles, if your wife has been good to you and she told, like, if you have a route, right? It's the easiest way to do it. So the only way to do that in Salesforce is to be able to segment your data that you're going to use for whatever work you're going to try to do with them. And the only way to do that is a list view, because list views are working reports. They filter the records you need to see to do the thing you're planning on doing. So let me give you a great sales op example. If my job as a sales development rep is to research every brand new lead to validate that that person exists on LinkedIn and to add their LinkedIn profile link to that lead record. Let's say that's my task that I need to do. I can't do that if I'm looking at a list of all the leads in all the different statuses. I need to filter that list,
right?
All the leads that are just the ones that are new that no one's done this research on yet, right? Because that's what I'm going to do for the next hour. This is the assembly line methodology of work. So if your job, first thing in the morning, because you get in at 7 before you can call anybody, your job is to spend an hour updating all the new leads with the LinkedIn, you'll be most efficient if you work on just those lead records while you're in LinkedIn, right? You're going lead to lead, one at a time. You're going to be the most efficient and effective if you just focus on that activity for that period of time. Let's say you schedule an hour a day to do that. It's the first thing you do every day. A list view is going to allow you to filter out all the other leads that don't need that work to be done. So you can work off that list. Kanban, may or may not be the way you would look at. Like Kanban is just a different way to display your records. But anyway, I digress because I'm so passionate about list views. Kanbans are when you're now looking at a group or a set of leads and the information presented. Let's say you're making calls to all the accounts to let them know you got a webinar coming up, and you say, okay, I'm making calls, boom, boom, I'm doing this, I'm moving them from one status to another, right? So it allows you to kind of manage those leads without having to actually change the record. The list view allows you to edit those leads like a spreadsheet. The Kanban allows you to look at them in groups, do something, and then change, and then move them down the path of wherever they're going or whatever status you're operating off of. And it's a beautiful, beautiful tool, but it actually represents a different kind of work that you're doing. So if I was Go ahead, unmute.
Yeah, I just was, matter of fact, I just was looking at that. I just took a trailhead last night on Scrum and Agile. They talked about Kanbans and when they're used in Salesforce. And they're not used all the time, but there are specific times that they use them where they're helpful as far as the development of the software.
That's right. And yeah, and it's a great little tool. Now, the other way you look at list views is the split view, which I call the Outlook view, right? Where you have your list of things you're working on the left. And as you click each one, it opens up the detail record of that thing on the right. And now you can literally get the full picture of that record from where you're looking at. And it's a beautiful, beautiful tool.
Yeah.
So anyway, and you can, the Kanban, the list view, and the split view all demonstrate different ways that you're working with that data.
Right.
And so I do classes on list views and list views alone just because it's so critical for people to understand. To be productive, you got to have the right, not just the right information to work with, but the right way of looking at that information.
Well, and you can still drill down into each individual record and update them, of course. Yeah.
Of course, but that's a waste of time if you don't need that. If you're doing the kind of work where you just drag in updates, that kind of thing.
Right. So, hey, I need a break for like about 5 minutes.
Me too.
Here.
Me too.
So, all right. So why don't we get back in about 5-10 minutes?
Absolutely. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to pause the recording. I don't think it'll pause the live stream. I'm just going to pause the recording for the recording's sake, and then we'll be right back.
Okay, cool.
5 minutes. This is my version of operational efficiency, Gregory. I stack cold pizza
Uh,
so I can eat 2 at once.
oh,
That's efficiency.
yeah.
I haven't eaten lunch all day, and it's 4 o'clock in Atlanta. So
I was gonna say that almost looks like if it was warm, you could fold it, be Brooklyn style.
mm. I think it's pretty close to New York style pizza.
Uh,
Thin crust, great place here. Where do you live, Gregory? What area of the world?
Dallas Fort Worth area.
And what company are you working with for your
Fellowship Sense Corp. They're headquartered out of Austin. They used to be headquartered out of St. Louis, but like a lot of tech companies, they migrated to Austin last year. And so they still have an office presence in St. Louis. Matter of fact, I keep watching my email or my phone there. I'm supposed to be getting a laptop from them this afternoon, and I'm gonna spend some time getting that set up and stuff. I need to have it done before my onboarding starts next week.
And you know what kind of role you're going to be in?
Consultant role. But right now, I mean, the way the fellowship works is, I mean, we're there to learn. So technically, they cannot bill my work. But I anticipate doing a lot of observing and things like that. Maybe work on some internal projects for them that I could probably do.
You're gonna do what I call you're gonna do a lot of Hey-Go work.
Yeah.
Hey, go get coffee. Hey, go get this. Hey, go get that.
Well, just being able to shadow somebody or sit in a meeting, I may not contribute anything, but just to kind of get a flavor as to what's going on and the types of problems they're dealing with and how they're approaching solving those problems. All that stuff is valuable.
When a couple of years ago, I was on a banking project in New Jersey, and we were doing user acceptance testing. And the young lead developer, this guy's 25 years old, New Yorker, Oliver, was amazing. He had his screen shared to the monitor in the room, the training class where we're actually doing the UA, the testing. And we came across the error. And instead of going through proper governance, he just opened up his screen and started to write a validation rule and a formula. And I'm like, or whatever he was doing. And I was just sitting there amazed and in awe of how good this kid was and how he, I knew what he was doing was a little outside of the normal governance.
Right.
I didn't care. I was watching this kid work. I was like a wizard, and knowing how good some people are is very intimidating in the Salesforce world.
Right.
And it's not always required of everybody to be that way, but it is required for somebody to be that way. But that's you'll get a lot of great experience in that regard, and that's going to be awesome. And I look forward to sharing and hearing about it too, because everybody needs to learn that stuff.
Yeah. And so, I'm pretty excited about the opportunity. I don't know where it's going to lead right now, but, I'm trying to keep an open mind about, there's certain things that I want to be able to do and accomplish in the next 120 days. One of them kind of being the obvious, just to get a chance to get my hands inside of a live org and do something and see the cause and effect of what you do. Because, you can practice and I can theorize as many scenarios, but after a while you run out of things to, like, what do I do next?
And there's I did a project last year coaching an admin for a company, and I ran into a lot of things I would never do, never recommend doing, but they worked. So I was like, hey, it worked. I learned something new. And it's live orgs are always different.
And I think this will also help set the stage for me. Like, so when I do I have some type of expectations of knowing, okay, because you see a lot of fodder out there on, well, how bad someone's orgs are, or how this admin walks in and this org is just a complete mess. So, I actually give me an idea to quantify that somewhat in my mind, like what exactly does that look like,
You'll be surprised. I got lots of examples of how bad it could look.
I mean, one of the things that was occurred to me yesterday, and I don't know if you touched on it before I got on, but is using Apex and security. So like if you're setting up somebody, let's say like on an account team, you could have some Apex code that ran in the background, maybe and assign the profiles and all that other stuff. So my question would be, like, as an admin, if I was walking into a new org, how would I know that existed out there without going and looking at every object and to see what code's written on every object? Because if it blows up and something's going wrong, then how do you figure that stuff out?
It's a great point. So even when I'm a trainer, like most of the work I've done has been as a trainer, right? But when I've trained, once I got my admin cert and so had the admin access,
right?
The first thing I learned to do is check the OWD. The first thing I want to see is how are you sharing your records, because that tells you how if they're public read write, then there's no mystery on how people get access and do what they do. Then you're going to have to use something else to monitor who's doing what when there's no restrictions on what people can and can't do, right? See. So the first thing I look at is the OWD. And right below the OWD are the sharing rules. And I start to get a sense of, okay, this is private, but I know the role hierarchy. I saw that. Now I can look at the rules and say, okay. And then I look at the settings for teams. Do they have teams activated? Okay. All right. Now I go through, then what I do because I break software for a living, to train it, I break it is what I try to do. Then I go try to put myself in a position of an end user. And I try to go to the first tab and I look to see how they have their app organized, which we're going to talk about.
Right.
I look at the list views they've created, what fields are displaying, what can I do with those fields? I want to look at every tab, and then I go and start creating records. I go back to where I think the start is. If it's a sales project, I'll start with a lead. If it's a service project, I'll start with a case, right? And I want to start at where would a record get created from, the web, and what would I do to take that one? So I create a record, and then I try to work the workflow myself, and then I just touch everything. I literally want to see what I see, and I want to test what I can do. And that takes me usually a couple of hours to go through and basically slap everything around the system. And then I get a sense of, how did this happen? Then I can go back now. So if it's a button that's on the screen that I'm not familiar with, I know where to go find that button in the page setup for that object. Then I can go look to see how they coded it. Was it Apex? Was it a flow? Those kind of things, right? Look at the automation settings, all that. That's what I do. I never try to figure it out without going from the user experience first.
Yeah, back in the early 90s, I worked for MCI. I was in their advanced technology lab, and we were trying to come up with some ways to test Sonnet, which was synchronous optic network, which is so prevalent now, but it was the latest and the greatest thing. So I was working with Hewlett Packard to develop a test set and some software that would run with it, but we needed to have a way of testing doing those types of things that you're talking about. So I had it wasn't very popular back then, but I found it to be very helpful because I wasn't a programmer, but I could do point and click, and I could design it what they would call a regression test set. that could run and basically mimic my mouse and cursor things. And every time that they came out with a new version, I could run the regression set against it and see if it still worked or something was broke, and then be able to figure out, if they had changed anything. I might be pressing a button, but if they changed the code underneath that button, it would, our engineers, all our engineers worrying about or cared about, hey, you give me something to use that I can test with, it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, I'm not interested in it. I'll just do it all by manual, by hand, the way I've been doing it the past 20 years.
Very cool. All right. I'd like to learn more about that, because I'm sure my way of doing things is pretty dumb, but it works for me. So I like dumb when it works. All right, here we go. All right. So we talked about the Kanban, and I kind of digressed a little bit about it. And I did that for your sake as much as the recording, but even though that's not the material. So the exercise is view accounts in different list views to illustrate the usefulness of those. And I probably should do that, but there's the table, the Kanban, and then the split view, which split view is like that Outlook view. And it's worth looking at. And anybody wants, I can give them that course. Now, page layouts, Universal Containers wants to make sure that the newly created fields are displayed in a logical order on the page, right? The way that a user wants to see them and the way that they want to update them. That's important. That's why I say when I do the testing, to me, I want to make sure that the earliest entered data is at the top. Because here's the skill set. Well, okay, let me go back and say this. You're a not younger dude, right? And there's a myth that says younger people learn technology better than not younger people. And I say nay.
Yeah.
That's not true, because not younger people have a skill that younger people don't have. And that skill is called reading. And reading, right? They're used to scrolling and scanning, not necessarily reading and writing. So if you learn software by applying your knowledge and skill of reading, it takes a little time, but you will allow yourself to learn the software. That's the big difference between young people and old people. Young people, whatever the mindset is, I mean, not just the age, not just the laps around the sun, but if you read a screen like a book, one line at a time, and I grew up Catholic, and nuns would hit me if I used my finger to read, right? Because that's how they taught. But nowadays, to learn digitally, you use your mouse pointer to control your eyes, and you read with your mouse pointer. And anytime the mouse pointer changes, it should signal your brain that something's different right there. And if you learn to slow down, you'll get faster over time, quicker than if you try to follow your mouse all around like this happens, right? This is what our eyeballs do. So the layout and the logic of the page works best if you map on Western reading to a Western audience. Top of the page is what you're going to see first. How are you going to do it? How are you going to use it? And then making sure that the users fill in that order. That way, when they scroll, the blanks trigger, oh, I need to fill that in. Oh, I need to fill that in, but I can't, or I got to use information above. So that's a kind of a simple way to understand page layouts, because page layouts organize and define the fields, the buttons, the related lists, and you can use customizations to put where you want to put the fields, where you want to section the fields, what type of properties you have on the field, like whether you make something required at the page level versus the system level. It changes the dynamic completely. And then field visibility. Do you have the field on the page? That's the first level of field level security. So And there's a couple of things that I like in Lightning that replicate really some of the structure that worked really well in Classic, and things that really work well for Lightning, and how you lay all that out. And you're really impacting the user experience, and they don't know that it could be better. They just know it is the way it is, and whether they like it or not. And some people get used to a crappy page layout because they just get used to it. Some human beings are like that. I'm a little diva when it comes to using it. And I know what's possible, and I get annoyed especially when I find out things can be different, right? If it doesn't fit my desires. So I use that as my frame. But when they talk about establishing unique layouts for different business scenarios, that's in the admin class that say, hey, if you're looking at the account record from a sales perspective versus an accounts receivable perspective, is it fundamentally different? Because if it is, give those different groups of users by profile what they need to see to get their job done most efficiently and effectively without having to click and refresh, right? That's why I teach my users, hover to discover. So when you hover over this owner field, you can see other information that you don't need to click and refresh and wait, because it takes time and effort. And all those little things slow you down over time, and they just wear you out. So really understanding how to adjust for your users improves not just the user experience, but actually the data quality and effectiveness of the company overall. So it's really important. So when you get to and in Lightning, there's really two ways you control the page. They call it the page layout editor because that's the only thing that ever controlled the page layouts in Classic. But now with Lightning, I like to call this the page detail editor, right? So it's the page detail layout editor. You're really controlling most of what's on the detail section of the page. Not all of it, but most of it. And you are controlling other things. But the Lightning page editor changes the fundamental structure of that page for the user as well. So in concert, you work with both in order to make sure that you get that page as effective and efficient and as user-friendly as possible. So the goal here is adding all your custom fields in the most logical order as possible, and arranging it according to this chart. So arrange the existing fields on the page, position page layout, create a section for description, set the status field to be required, and add position history to the related list, and then test it. So those are pretty administrative only. Like we teach that in the admin class. So people who are taking this that aren't an admin, there's more details on that, but it's in the trailhead with all the instructions. Any questions, comments about that page editor? So the Lightning app builder is where you build those Lightning pages, those pages that you're really creating the structure that holds the Lightning, the page detail layout editor. So, and we're going to talk about this dynamic forms, which is a new feature in Sales with Lightning.
I'd be interested to learn about that.
Me too, because I haven't used it much lately. So I'm new to this. I'm glad I could saw it. It helped me a lot. So, all right. So, the requirement is they want the shipping address fields to be hidden as soon as a user selects the ship to billing address checkbox. That's a conditional field for the page. So what it's doing is we're making Lightning gives the admin of the app developer, the platform developer, the ability to make the page robust without having to use other methods that are more taxing on the server and slows down the overall process. So let's talk about the Lightning app builder, right? So this is the point and click layout tool. And it's really it really is the page layout editor where you can create custom pages for both mobile and Lightning. Now, the beautiful thing about mobile is that Lightning pages, the whole thing with mobile, and Salesforce took its CRM game up with Lightning, because if you know Lightning pages on your desktop or computer browser, it automatically translates to the mobile browser for the most part. We're getting more advanced over the last 5 years, but that was the design and the intention. So, but creating custom pages, you can build a home page, right? So when you create that custom app, you can create a whole different home page, a record page, or an app page, right? Where you build out the page to reflect the person and the work that they're doing. So you can that homepage is great, because let's say you have an executive app and executives need to see certain things different than the sales user needs to see it, or the customer service rep needs to see it. So you can customize the page for them, and it's almost like customizing for the individual when you can customize these pages for the groups. Now, Lightning record pages changes the way a user could see a record, and you can assign it by profile as well. But each object has a default record page, because in Salesforce, that's really the only way to see your records is through a page, right? It's not, you're not looking at it like a list view or a spreadsheet. This is Salesforce's way of taking a spreadsheet and making it more human friendly. And it's built by using components. So it's kind of depending on the structure, depends on where you put your components and how they lay out on the page, whether it's all the way across a third, across half, across 2/3, and how all those thirds map, right? So, and then what you put in the component determines what the user sees. And when you build that custom record page, you can build it with those related lists on the same page. You can kind of basically lay it out. I'm not gonna demo it. I'm not gonna look at it. There's if you need help with this, let me know. I'll create a video specifically for this as a demonstration and go through some exercises. But
yeah, this was pretty straightforward whenever I went to the training. When I've done individual trailheads like on this though, I'm not really too crazy about. They still need to tweak about if you're designing for desktop and then you're designing for mobile, you're changing the form factor. They tend to rely on what browser you're using to be able to display it in, which sometimes does not work out well.
No, it doesn't. And here's the thing: build it for the desktop, and then adjust the mobile as needed. But most of the time, it's a solid, it's a safe assumption to go it works on mobile, and then just look to see how your users use mobile, depending on your organization. Now, dynamic forms. This adds visibility rules to fields and sections. So as the record progresses, and my example for this is that it would be, I'll give an example from one of my training projects. So in this training project, we were implementing Salesforce for a radio station company. That's the primary function of sales, is to sell advertising. That's what funds a radio station, right? Or any type of media company. So but there were two ways a sales rep would get advertising revenue. And another agency would say, hey, I need X for one of my clients, or they would have a conversation with a client and figure out what they need, and they create an opportunity. Now, here's where there was a fundamental flaw in the way they designed their opportunity records. And they didn't have Lightning, by the way, but they could have used validation rules. They just chose not to. When an opportunity was at the approval stage, right? The customer signed off, they want the advertising package. When you set that opportunity, when you sent it up the chain of command so everybody could approve all those slots and all the advertising, right? It put the opportunity in a 98% probability. And in the state of, it was all the same stage. It wasn't a sent for approval stage. It was close. It wasn't a closed. I think it was. I'm just going to say it was under contract, not closed won, not completed. Right. So it's in the sales process, but now we need internal approvals because you're managing 30-second, 15-second spots in a 24-hour calendar on 3 different radio stations. All that's got to fit, right? They got to test it to make sure it would fit to fulfill. So when you think about the sales process, I got to meet a guy at a company. I got to talk to them about advertising. I got to find out what they're doing. Right? There's a sales process. There's effort that has to be collected. And then I can build a proposal. And then I can present it to the customer. And then I can, after the customer approves it, then I can get my people to approve it, right? Well, the sale, and then it's a 98% done. I'm now waiting on my people to say yes, and then I can bill for it.
Right.
Well, when an agency sends you a request, most sales reps would make the assumption that this is a done deal. I just need to build it out. And they would literally save the opportunity with no other information other than I got a customer with $1,000 spend for the month of February on this radio station. They would create the opportunity, and then they would, because it was a done deal, they would save it in the same stage as one they'd actually worked and done the proposal and submitted for approval. And there was, looking at a list view, there's no way to tell the opportunities apart. I mean, there were, but I had to create it for them.
Right.
So a dynamic form could prevent a user from doing certain things without prerequisite information already added to it. So it prevents a user from hurting themselves and moving a record into a spot. Think about that Kanban view, right? You're
Right.
moving something into the ready to deliver mode and you haven't cooked it yet. Another way to think about it is this. If you've ever worked in a restaurant, and I'm just thinking of this example right now because I was watching a cooking show last night. I'm like, okay, it would be like when you order food at a restaurant, that waiter takes it to the kitchen. The kitchen puts it in line, and then they prepare the food. And when it's ready, it goes to the expediter window. The expediter, the waiter or the expediter picks up that food and delivers it to the table. So what this sales reps were doing at this company was, in effect, they were saying, hey, order this thing, and putting a plate of raw chicken on the plate at the expediter window as if the cooks are going to grab it from that window and then cook it and put it back. They were putting raw food in the same place they were putting cooked food. From a restaurateur's point of view, that is a problematic situation, right? Raw chicken is bad. Any way you shake it. So the dynamic forms, allows you to control the record until you collect the right information so that you're really revealing the status of that record more appropriately. And this is available on custom objects, and it's on the roadmap for standard objects in the future.
Okay.
And so anyway, so that's what dynamic forms do. So they allow you to control the section and the field with dynamic forms. So you can have a field section component and new individual field components. And they're on custom objects only right now.
So in a sense, really, these dynamic forms apply like a validation rule type of situation
yeah,
to the record, so that you can't go from one place to the other without having something done. Or if you do something, it's going to direct you in a specific on a specific path.
yeah.
Another place in the app.
To me, it's a more dynamic way to look at the path. So Salesforce created the path so you could see the logical progression of a record from when you start to when you finish, right? Like a lead.
I guess my question would be, let's say I start to go down the wrong path. Can I back out and go reverse and go to the right path?
Well, maybe. I don't know. It depends on how you set it up, right? But that's the idea. The idea is that you prevent users from seeing step 3 before they complete step 2.
Right.
And that's just good mojo. And that's a good, as we move down this. So on the so again, you can control the fields. That's that new fields tab. And you can control the section or the individual field, and then what the requirements are. Now this is a progression from component visibility filters. Where you could do this in Lightning with components. So if you didn't want to show a component unless you were with the executive profile, you could literally hide or show components on the page. Now we're saying fields and sections can be released, right? So that you get them at the right time. So it's that just-in-time philosophy that you can show what they need to see, when they need to see it, not before, not after. So it's the Goldilocks principle. You're getting it when it's just right. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. So for existing Lightning pages, you need to upgrade those existing pages to dynamic forms. So you click on, for the existing forms, I would go through it, but I'm not gonna right now because I want to move through it. And then you upgrade them. So the field section component and the individual field components are desktop only. So the record detail for mobile would be a different component that you would put on the page. And that's created by the migration wizard, which is what it's taking you to do. So it's let's see, red box components are only available for that page. Availability of certain record page components depends on object selected, object settings, and org settings. Okay, so for the app page, there aren't any. For the home page, these are the ones that are affected by it. And for the record page, these are the ones that are affected by it. Those are the standard components for each of these types of pages.
All right.
So the dynamic forms creator is something that if we get finished this section 6, I'll come back to dynamic forms and we'll open up an org and play with it. Okay. I want to get through this because that was a sloppy delivery in my world, because again, I'm doing this on the fly, the worst way to do it. So I thought that was a kind of a sloppy way to deliver this personally. And if you think the same, just keep it to yourself. Don't put it in the comments on the YouTube. But I mean, but as far as I'm concerned, right, I'm gonna hopefully, if we get through this section, I'll go back to this one because I think this one is worth getting our hands on. But I want to get through section 6 so that when I post the video, lesson 5 and 6 are a complete session, and then we'll go back and do it. Is that fair?
Yep.
So the scenario is users are confused because they see fields that are not appropriate for the situation. And you want to make the interface more dynamic. So users only see what they need when they need it. That's the whole point. We'll go do that one using dynamic forms. We're going to enable that and add filters in the app builder to test it out. After we get done these two other sections, we got about.
I'm assuming like this might work a certain way, like depending upon what path you're taking, you might use a variable pick list. And if you go down one path, you get certain values off of a pick list that apply. And then if you go the other path, you get the rest of the value.
I got what you're saying. Yeah. I'll say it like this. So you're selling to a customer, you sell products and you sell services. Let's say you sell two things. So I'm going to sell you this timer, or I'm going to sell you the training to work the timer. Fair enough?
Right.
So depending on my data selections, let's just say I'm going to give you a pick list of which timer you want if you want a product, or I'm going to show you a pick list field, a different pick list field for the services to see how much training you want based on something else. But I'm not going to show you both. I'm going to show you one pick list field or the other. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Or I'm not going to show you the services until you pick the product, because there's certain fields that, different selections I want. So you're really saying but I have a lot more work to do to figure out which products you want before I do the work of figuring out which services you need, right? And it's a basic way to do it, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Not the pick list values themselves. And the reason I say that is you went a little too deep, and that you touched on what a record type would do,
right?
Not the dynamic. So the fields and the sections are affected by this, not the pick list values of a field.
Right. Okay, I'll follow you.
Right. So that's a different feature. So I just want to be clear, because it's good that you brought it up. I just want to be clear. It's the field, not what the record type would be inside that field.
Right.
All right. The mobile. I love Salesforce Mobile, by the way. I wish I was more mobile so I could actually use it more. But I try to, when I'm teaching, especially in outside Salesforce, and I've got a lot of experience teaching CPG companies and pharmaceutical companies. If they got Salesforce now, like there's no way I don't like have people pull out their phone in class and do stuff, because it's so much faster than opening your laptop, waiting for it to open. Your phone is quicker.
Right.
And the Salesforce data is there, and it's always connected, and it's got the internet, and you don't have to do anything extra. So good to go. Get your quick information, open your laptop later. So you can customize how the data is displayed in the mobile environment. So you can make it more mobile friendly, given the way your mobile users want to access the data. So first and foremost, make it work for the computer, the desktop. Make it work there. Then watch how people struggle with it in the field, and then make your adjustments accordingly. That's from a trainer's point of view. But and I'm not just a trainer. I'm a performance consultant. I can pull my little certificate off the wall and show you how human performance works is by observation. Don't let people tell you what they need. Watch them. See what they do. That's good for development as well. Watch them. Their behavior reveals the truth. Their words are mostly, I'm not going to say lie. I'm going to say less than accurate. Human beings are not good being accurate with their words, right? So their behavior and how they actually do something, this is just a good rule of thumb, by the way, as a developer, as an admin, or as a trainer. One of the things you always want to do is watch people do it. Don't ask them how they do it, because they're lying to you. If not lying intentionally, lying by lack of accuracy, right? Just using the right words and the right thing. So you can change the order of the menu items for the navigation, so they don't need to see certain things up front. If they're out in the field, they might need to see different order of events, navigation tabs.
Yeah.
Right? When they're out in the field, the salesperson doesn't need to see leads.
Yeah, there we are.
There you go.
I've got mine up.
They need to see events. Yeah, exactly. You can customize the compact layout so that they get the information they need at, with less scrolling on the screen. So you're compacting the information. And look, I what I don't like about this screenshot is, why do I need the if I'm in the field, I don't need their website. Could I replace that with something more accurate, like the phone number? I don't need their annual revenue and their number of employees. I need their address, right? Because I'm in the field. I want their name, their phone number, their address, and their email, because if I'm stuck, I want to call them. If the map didn't take me where I needed to go, I got to call them and get the right address. Like, I want to, what does a mobile user need is the question. So that's what the compact layout, and you answer that question by knowing, what are they doing? What is their objective from where they are in the world to where they want to be in the world? Where do they want to be? What are they trying to do? So that's how you end up doing that. And then you can also customize the action menu at the top, the action bar at the top, to reflect the kind of things they're doing on their mobile device. There's a great product called Viva, Veeva, that is for built. It's an interface that uses Salesforce as the back end. And I've been on a couple of Viva training projects in my life, and I'm always shocked and amazed that they've hired me as a trainer and anybody else to train that product. It's so user friendly. I go, I don't know why you're training this. Everybody should know this. Now, the good news is not every human is as good as me. So at learning user software to train. So I have a skill at it that's been developed over 21 years, but 22 years now. But man, it's like the difference between Apple and a Unix interface, right? I mean, like, Apple made its bones with making it easy for the user to use. And I, after going on Apple for a year and a half now, an iPhone, I go, I get it. I'll suck it up. I get it works. I like it. All right, I'll give up my high horse about PC and all that, blah, blah, blah.
I'm waiting to see what I'm going to get sent, if it's going to be an iOS laptop or
It's going to be a PC. I guarantee it's going to be a PC because it's cheaper.
Yeah. Well, it's a consulting company. They're kind of halfway to boutique, so who knows?
They're overpriced if they send you a Mac. I guarantee it.
Yeah. My wife's family is like entirely Mac, and I'm like, I'm not completely sold that you can do more things with a Mac than you can with Android or Windows.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm on a Mac right now.
Right.
And I'm on my Mac. I got the Mac when I was on a project, and the guy didn't send me my last check. So I said, well, I'm going to hang on to this until that. And he said, well, just send it to me. I'll send you the check. I'm like, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. So now I still got a Mac. He never sent me the money. So I find that the Mac doesn't do more than the PC. It's just a little more elegant, and it draws me to it.
Right.
It doesn't have a touch screen. I've got another laptop that has that I have a PC that I'm going to use that does that. It's just got a little bit of elegance. Now, when I get that PC up and running,
yeah,
then I might use that because it's got a touch screen and I like that, but it doesn't flip into a tablet. And I don't know what.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, when my wife works from home and she has a MacBook Pro, and she's asking me something, I'm going and touching her screen and nothing's happening all the time. It's just like, I can't get used to that.
Well, luckily, before they had touch screens, I was very averse to anybody touching my screen.
Yeah.
And I don't like when people touch my screen. I don't like to touch a screen because of the fingerprints, right? I'm a little nerd in that regard.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, it's touchscreens are not my favorite feature. So I don't feel drawn to it. So I'm okay that Mac doesn't have it. All right, let's go back to this. So anatomy of record page in the mobile app, your record detail is all that field data. And then you have your action bar, and your compact layout is the key fields, right? So it shows you the key fields over the top, but you also have the related list. You can go into more detail. You can hit chatter. So all of that's built. That's the pieces of a record page in the Salesforce mobile app. There's an item feed, which is what this is, and that gives you like the highlight. This is like the highlights panel, and your related lists, and then your details or chatter, all those things that you're working on. And there, it gives you those key fields at a glance. So that's important to know what the user wants and needs when they're looking at a 4-inch by 2-inch screen, right?
Question. It kind of goes back to what you previously talked about, but in this context, are dynamic forms supported in mobile?
I don't know. Because I don't know dynamic forms that well. I would imagine. Well, hopefully, let's get through this and we'll see if we can get to it. Because maybe we get through quick actions. We'll go play with dynamic forms.
Okay.
And I'll pull out some exercises and we'll walk through it, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, most of the customizations you do on a Lightning pages automatically update the mobile app. So custom objects, fields, and page layouts automatically come over. But the idea behind the mobile app is whatever you build for the desktop, most of the time goes to the mobile. If you don't like it, you can adjust just the mobile app to address what the mobile user needs. Does that make sense?
Right.
That's really the point of it. It's sort of like when you set up an email template in Salesforce. You might build it in HTML, but the text version, if somebody's receiving that email and they strip out all the HTML and just give the text, by default, the text version automatically renders for the recipient. If you don't like the way that looks automatically, then you can override it with the text only version. You don't need to spend time overriding the text only version when you set up your HTML, only if it's ugly. Like, you only have to fix it. You don't have to set it every time. Same thing with mobile. Lightning Desktop is going to render mobily, and you don't have to do anything most of the time. Unless it doesn't look right, then you can adjust just the mobile. That's the key message. Does that make sense? Wait, one last thing. Yeah. So if you add a custom field to an object and it shows up on the desktop, but a sales rep's opening up that object record for the first time, that new field is going to show up automatically. You don't have to do anything. It does it automatically. You only have to fix it if it's ugly. And really, that's it. Better than children, by the way. You can't fix the ugly ones. You just got to tell them to be smart and have a nice personality. That's what my parents told me. Just be nice. All right. So this is a great one. The user complaints are a double-edged sword in my experience. They are sometimes useful. Most of the time, they're automatic. A lot of users will complain for the sake of complaining because they just don't want to learn something new. That's it.
Right.
You got to be able to discern what they're complaining about so that you're not blowing off useful feedback. And as a trainer, this is what I experience all the time. Users complaining all the time. My job as a trainer is overcoming the complaint with education and sometimes domination. Like, look, it's called Salesforce, not Sales Ask. You have to do it. So if you want to keep your paycheck, you have to do it. But if it's something that's really designed poorly, You want to fix those. The way you can tell the difference is, like, I'm going to say this again at this point, watch them, have them show you what they're complaining about. And just take, as a developer, as a consultant, as an admin, or as a trainer, or a manager, somebody's complaining, say, well, show me what you're talking about. I hear what you're saying, but show me what you mean. And they'll say, see, no. Show me with a record. Do the thing you're complaining about. Ugh. Like, do you want it? Like, that's why if you've got a question, my first response is, can you send me a Loom video of it? Now, Loom is just one screen sharing program where you can record your screen really easy. It's free. You can do up to 5 minutes for free. And I like that because I don't want you to pay for Loom. I want you to show me in less than 5 minutes if I'm helping you for free, right? I want you to be able to show me what your problem is in 5 minutes or less so that I can consume it, process it, come up with a solution, and send you back the answer. Fair enough? Same thing with all of this. That's when you send me one, send me that. So to reduce the number of clicks, you can also create quick action buttons. And there's 2 types of quick action buttons, object specific and global. We'll talk about both of those. Quick actions are just that. The global ones come from the little plus sign at the top of the screen. And the reason they're called global actions, in my opinion, I wasn't on the committee that named them, but I am on the committee that tells people what I think. And I'm always on that committee, by the way, I'm the chairman. And that header at the very top of your screen in Salesforce Lightning is the global header. And that means it's always there, right? And when anything you do in that section affects everything in Salesforce, right? Or you can touch everything from the top of the pyramid. So the global action, basically, how I explain it to students is, when you click that, no matter what you're doing in Salesforce, it will create a little pop-up overlay that allows you to do that and then go back to what you were doing. So if I get a phone call while I'm working on an opportunity record for a new lead.
Is that it? My laptop.
Hey, all right, cool. So I know you're gonna I gotta go. I know. If you're like me, you want to play with it. So it's on all pages at all times, and whatever action you create, it's going to create an overlay so you can complete that action and go back to whatever's underneath. You don't have to change tabs or records underneath. Now, when you look at the action buttons on an objects tab, that's an object specific action. That's going to be on the tab menu or the record menu, depending on where you place it. And then, of course, those actions can also live on the mobile record as well.
Right.
So quick actions share many similarities with custom buttons and links. The key difference is simplicity. Actions create a more streamlined experience between the mobile and desktop, and actions creation can be completely declarative. You can also set default values in these actions. So you can set predefined values for any field available in the action editor, except rich text area fields, multi-select pick lists, and other fields like auto number, formula, and roll-up summaries, because they're not held by, something else automatically creates a lot of those, or a chooser has to choose it. A predefined value can be set in an action for like required fields, and then those fields can be removed from the action layout. So it's a great way to make sure data is entered completely but quickly for the user. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So what can they do? Well, you can have create actions, so it lets user create records. And you can also, like I said, predefine certain fields that might be needed for, depending on where you place that action button, you might be able to draw in data that pre-populates required fields so the user doesn't have to.
Right.
Logging a call is a quick action. So it basically saves a task as completed. So you can just enter the basic information and it logs everything else. You can have an update action. So one common one is a close case button. So you click close case and it automatically changes the status. It automatically does X, Y, and Z. Maybe it sends an email. Or you could create custom actions. They can be either global or object specific. And then they should be used when you want a functionality beyond what's available in the standard page layout editor or record page. So you could kick off a flow. You could click off a component action. You could have it send an email. It's sort of like, to me, it's kind of like a macro, except it automatically carries forth certain actions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
All right, so we'll drop down a little more object specific. So an object specific actions are automatically associated with the record that's you hit the button from. So let's say create, this isn't an exact one. Let's say you want to create a proposal from the information you already collected on the opportunity object. Let's say you're not using products and all that, but you just want to have a button that says, click that, and it does the whole, renders it, and then like you could have it do a bunch of stuff, right? So,
right.
Or one that creates a contact but brings in a lot of the detail information from the account onto that contact record that maybe other custom fields and other things that you have. So it automatically associates it with that account. Some of these happen in standard records too, so it should be kind of familiar. You can only add an object specific action to the record page of that object. So the log a call quick action, because it's an object specific, it automatically fills in the account on the child record with Acme. So if you're at that, if you're creating that, right? So if you're logging a call, it's automatically going to associate it to that account. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's the benefit of an object one versus a global one. A global, you got to tell it which record. An object related automatically picks the record you're in.
Right. Yeah, you're there. So
it's a shortcut. Exactly. So in this exercise, we want to create an action to create a job application from a candidate record. So, right, I'm at the candidate and they say, yeah, I want to apply for that job. Boom, boom, it automatically does it. We can customize the quick actions layout. So we gather the fields, update the fields, work with those fields. We can set predefined values and add that to the candidate page layout and then test it. That's what you're going to do on that exercise. So look for it in
the
trailheads. Now, the globals are an action adds functionality to Salesforce, and you can enable actions in the publisher, and that adds those actions on any one of the home pages, chatter tab, chatter groups, or record detail pages. So global actions can be placed on record detail as well, but it allows you to create objects. But the new record doesn't have automatic associations with the other records. So you're just basically creating it from scratch, right? The object specific is creating it in the context of that object. So it pulls in data from that object. Whereas global, it's the same way it's like creating an opportunity from a global actions button versus creating it from the contact record or from the account itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I look at the global as I'm working on something. Oh, I got an interruption. I need to do something quick. And there, I can do it. It can go back to what I'm working on. So
exactly.
Basically the same type of functionality, different way of approaching it.
Exactly. It saves you a step sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't have to click on you don't have to stop what you're doing, click on the tab, hit the new button, right? So it's a shorter of a shortcut. So global actions are created in the global actions of the setup menu. They can create a record, send an email, log a call, or anything you create custom in Visualforce, Canvas, or a Lightning component. That's usually that little plus sign at the top of your screen next to the other global controls. Right? That's usually where they live. Object specific is in the object. You've got buttons, links, and actions section on the left-hand side of that object was one of the object controls. And you can do the same things: create a record, send an email, log a call, update this record,
Right.
launch a flow, or something custom Visualforce or Lightning component. And it's only available on the record pages for those objects. Now, yeah, that's where they're at. Let's keep it simple there. Now, global quick actions. Again, like you could create a log a call. You could create all the standard objects. You could create an event without invitees. And update actions are not available as global quick actions because they're not associated to a record. So you can't update a record globally. You have to be in the record in order to make some kind of update change. So in Classic, they appear in the Chatter publisher at the top of the Chatter pages. And in Lightning, they appear in that plus sign. So you don't have to worry about Classic much. Now, the global, so global publisher layouts controls which actions are displayed and in what order. So when you look at the global publisher, you can only publish global actions. So of the set of all the global actions you have on your publisher, you can limit which ones you see by putting them on those pages. So, and you can have different global layouts and assign those to different profiles. So depending on the profile, you can choose which actions are available. And that's in the publisher layouts. So in publisher layouts, you can set it up for a sales rep or an operations person or an HR person. You can set all those up. So basically, they got the buttons they need to do their job. I can't hear you. You're muted.
You can set it up to protect them from themselves.
Absolutely, as much as you can. But you'll be, people find a way to hurt themselves. They really do. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
So they want a simple way for human resources and recruiters to add new candidates. So we're going to create a global quick action and a separate global layout to accomplish this. And that's going to be your way of doing it. So we're going to create a global click action to create a candidate record. And it's only going to be available to those human resource profile users. And if you run into trouble. So let's ask a few questions before we go, because we got time. And I think it'll be a lot more fun to go, and we'll see how long it takes us to go to those dynamic record pages. But I really want to get my hands on those dynamic record pages and see those dynamic forms, because it's new and I haven't tested it yet. And I want to be knowledgeable, more knowledgeable about it, so that I have some experience to talk from. Now let's do a quick knowledge check. Which declarative configuration would allow HR reps to quickly close positions from their desktop or mobile device? We just talked about it. This is where you unmute.
Declarative configuration. You could
There's the last section we went over.
So yeah, quick action.
Quick action, that's right.
Yeah.
So the quick action to do it. And the page layout controls all but what? This is a weird question. And let me give you a little insight as to the answer. So a page layout, remember, from the page layout, I can make a field visible or hidden. I can make a field required or not at the page layout level. I could change where that field appears and how that field appears. What I can't do is change the pick list values of a field, of a pick list field. That's the only thing I can't do with the page layout controls. They're talking about a very specific one. A page layout controls the layout and organization of buttons,
Right.
fields, S controls, visual force, all those sections, buttons, related lists. You can control everything on the page layout editor except the pick list values, which, by the way, we're going to cover in the next section. What does control pick list values is record types.
Right.
So page layouts only go so far to customize the user experience for that type of record that you're building that page layout for. And that's really important to understand, because why would you, the only reason to create more than one page layout for an object is because different groups of users need to see that record
Differently.
That's it. There's a different interaction they have. There's a different job they do. So the only reason you create different page layouts is to accommodate those differences.
Yeah. So Service Cloud is a perfect thing to do that with.
Yeah. So the view a customer service rep needs of a case, and the view a sales rep needs of a case that their, it might be their customer's case.
Right.
But what they need to see and what a customer service rep needs to see might be very different.
Yeah.
And so the only limitation, thank God they have it, of the page layout is there's only two limitations of the page layout. One is the number of page layouts every profile can have. It's a one-to-one relationship. And the other is pick list values. You can't control the pick list values. And that's an important distinction in why we need record types. So record types overcomes the two limitations of page layout. And the only reason you need page layout is because not every user interacts with data the same way. They don't do this. Not everybody's got the same job. And that goes back to why we have profiles, because not everybody needs to see and do the same thing. So Salesforce is beautiful in that regard, because it's one of the few platforms out there that really gives you the ability to tweak those dials to make the user experience effective, therefore making your data more accurate. And with more accurate data, you can make better decisions overall. And better decisions lead to better profit and better effectiveness. Number 3. Where, this is a funny answer on my PowerPoint. Where can Salesforce customers get Lightning components for a Lightning page? They can get them from standard Lightning components available out of the box, custom Lightning components that can be developed programmatically, or that someone else created in an app on the App Exchange that's managed by the app owner. So there's really 3 places: standard, I'm going to call it managed, and unmanaged. Unmanaged is what is managed by someone else that comes from an app. Unmanaged is you're the manager. You created it. You're the person responsible for developing it. Does that make sense? And that's right. You see that on the daggum screen when you look at the components on your Lightning pages. You'll see standard, custom, and managed. Those are the 3 ones. So there they are. Number 4, when a custom field is added to a page layout, in which situation must the field also be added to the mobile configuration to be available in the mobile app? I'll say that question another way. If you
isn't there a checkbox to indicate whether something is available in a mobile app or not?
No.
Or is that the component?
It's a component, probably.
Yeah.
So Probably. I'm saying probably because I don't know off the top of my head because I would just look on the screen and it would tell me. Like certain things I endeavor not to remember because it's on the screen anyway, and I'll look at it and see it and it'll work the way it does. And if it is that way now, it might not be that way in 3 months because Salesforce changes. So let me ask this. Do you have to do anything to add a custom field to show up on the mobile app if you added it to the page on the desktop? Yes or no?
I would think so.
No, you don't. It's automagic. So that's what we said about the mobile app. Anything you do for the desktop automatically transfers with quotation marks for the most part to the mobile app. That's the beauty of Salesforce Mobile. It's an automatic transfer from Lightning to mobile. Automatic.
I'm pretty sure there is something that you can check to if you're developing a Lightning page that you can indicate whether it's available on mobile or not.
Yeah, I got it. But don't get lost in that knowledge on the test. They're only asking about a custom field, which is automatic.
Right.
So of all the choices, you got to do nothing is your only answer. And that's you're right. There are things you got to do something with, but not in the context of this requirement for this question. So I'm saying that because I want to train you to think about how to answer the questions, not how much you know about Salesforce. Right. Because how much you know about Salesforce will get you the wrong answer if you're not careful, right?
Right.
Just make sure you focus your answer on the requirements that are delivered to you in the question. And the word and every word counts, by the way. Every word in the question counts, and every word in the question is absolutely accurate. I guarantee it. Fair enough?
All right.
Yep. That's just test taking Salesforce certification 101. All right. What are the types of custom tabs? And by the way, you don't have the multiple choice piece of this because that's not how they're doing the PowerPoint anymore.
All right.
So remember the custom tabs that there are in Salesforce. Let me see if I can get to that slide. Hang on. This is me trying to navigate this stupid PowerPoint. I do not like this, Sam. Oh, there it is. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wanker. All right, here we go. So is in our earlier.
Like
I don't
get it.
Yeah. Anyway, let's see if I can do. Is it this? No, I don't want that. This. There was you have custom rec tabs. You have custom anyway, you have custom object tabs. I'll give you the whoa. I'll give you the answer. Custom object tabs and Lightning page tabs. Remember there's Visual Force tabs. Some other ones I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
I just can't scroll to it because my monitor is a older TV, my other monitor, and I'm just let me swap this way. Hold on. I'm now, and so I couldn't get to this little scroll bar on my monitor. So let me just see where it's at. Here they are.
Custom tabs.
There we go.
Yeah.
I don't let the technology beat me. So custom object tabs, web tabs, Visual Force tabs, Lightning page tabs, and Lightning component tabs.
Right.
Those are the kinds of custom tabs you got. 189. Okay, let's go there. All right.
Okay.
So now what I want to do is, I want to go back to
If you want to do the dynamics things, I'll be glad to
Yes.
sit. Yeah, I just need to take another break here.
Yeah, take a break. I'm gonna load up an org,
Okay.
and then take a quick break. I'm gonna load up an org, and then I am going to load up. I'm gonna try to find the trailhead.
Okay.
And I'll see you in a minute when you get here. Let's see.
All right.
Hmm. All right, we're gonna do it. Oh, come on, man.
Okay, I'm back. I had to shoot her a quick note and let my new company know I got my laptop, and it is a Dynabook. If you know what that is.
No, what is that?
It's a Windows based laptop. I don't think they do any third party Apple products because their licensing is so they don't license their products.
Um,
Up to me, close the door.
all right, let's see. I just had to reset my password. I'm waiting.
I don't know if you got enough usernames saved there. 11. I
What's that?
don't know if you have enough usernames saved there.
No,
11.
oh, that's not even all of it. Let's see. And I don't know why I have a standard password that I use.
Uh,
It's just some of them. But I'm waiting to let's see. Let's see if that did it. Want to be careful to log in too much. Come on, Salesforce, let's go. All right. So for some reason, when I go to I want to log into this particular org. Now I know why. I got the wrong email address. Let's see. All right, let's see how that works. Booyah. So I used a different email address and I didn't check I got it now. Save that booger. All right. So let's go look at this. So so to do the dynamic forms, I couldn't find a trail on it. I looked for a trailhead trail.
Yeah.
I couldn't find one. So I'm going to record this and provide instructions for anybody who wants it. But I'm going to go to the I think I got to set up Lightning Experience in this org. So let me just get started here. Let's see. So my steps to discover, blah, blah, blah. I can't remember if I need to do any of these. It's actually good stuff. Like good intel for people who are in Classic. If you're on Classic, stop it. Just go. I can't remember where the setting is anyway. So let's see, discover phase. I'm not following the path clearly.
There's nothing up on the top level menu on the right there that you could just say switch to Lightning.
Where?
I'm just asking the question.
No, I gotta
because I'm pretty sure that there's something after you've set up, you can switch back and forth up there.
Yeah. One of these settings typically turns it on. Not that I need it because we're doing the lightning thing. Let's just see if there's anything. Learn about Salesforce Lightning, watch it go to community, blah, blah, blah. Oh, check readiness. I could probably run the check readiness. This is me moving too fast. Love the change manager. I think you had to run that report first or whatnot. All right, download pack.
You shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to just turn it on.
Yeah, I just didn't. Let's see.
Select rollout stage.
Yeah. There it is. Turn on. That's what I was looking for. That one button. Ah.
There we go. It's happening.
Right. I know I couldn't find the damn button. Put me through that, and I was moving too fast. All right. So, all right. So what we're gonna do? Let's see if we have the shipment record. I don't know. See if we have the shipment. May not. No, we got to create the shipment first. Hold on a second. Come on, man. So I don't have a. All right. Let's just. All right. Let's go to my object manager. So let's look at it. Let's see if we have any custom objects.
Interviewer.
Look at it. I forgot what object goes in. Hang on a second. There's an easy way to go about doing it. So the job application. If I go to a job application record, do I have any in here? Nope. Let's see if I have. I will create a new one.
Salesforce Ben has a tutorial on dynamic forms overview and deep dive tutorial.
I like Salesforce.
Simply go to the Lightning record page of a custom object and select the highlights panel or record detail component. Then you'll see the option to upgrade now, and you can choose between migrating the existing page or starting from scratch.
Well, I wanted to open up the record page. So let's see. Hang on a second. Look, we got it over here. It's already got it. Fields. All right. Like available custom object record pages, dynamic ready to get started. Select the record detail component on the canvas and click the upgrade now.
Basically, just what I just read.
Yeah, I know, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't hear it, and it says upgrade now, but where's the upgrade now? I'm on the record detail page.
Select the highlights panel or the record detail component.
Oh, there you go. There it is. That's it right there, the highlights panel.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. All right. Now let's see. Oh, la, 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 la. All right. So we got let's look at I'm just making up some fields. So the add filter.
Actually, his tutorial follows right along. I'm looking at it with basically what you're trying to do. They talk about selecting a candidate field and
We're on the same page. Can you put his link in the chat?
let me look here. Open Chrome. Let's see here.
Let's just see how it goes. Oh, what happened? Did it not upgrade?
All right, try that and see if that works. Yeah, that took me right to it. The link I just put in there.
Let's see if I did it right.
My allergies this year have just been off the charts. It's warm weather. That's the bad thing about Texas is it never gets really cold enough to kill off anything really good, and there's always something growing.
Thought I activated it, but let's see. Okay. All right, so upgraded. So I'm going to click on fields, field section.
And so what she's saying here when she wrote the article is you can take that component and make it conditionally available to users within a certain profile.
Right.
And then you can take the fields and make them conditionally appear only if certain other things are true.
Yeah. Hang on. All right, so I'm adding the filter. Let's see. Do I have willing to travel? I don't have willing to travel. She had some other custom fields I don't have. All right, so I'm making this conditional section, and I'm going to add the filter. Let's see where the filter is. Looks just like a component filter. Ah, okay. Let's see. There we go. User profile name. Yeah, let's see that. All right, so I should only be able to see this component, this conditional one,
Right.
if I so my conditional section is based on my profile being admin. Actually, not equal to, nope, I got to do contains. All right, so let me just see. There's so much prep work I did not do on this org that I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just check it and make sure.
So if you were to log in as another user, you should not be able to see that.
Correct, but I don't know if I have another user yet, but I got to figure it out. This is being on the fly.
Yeah.
Being sly on the fly. All right, so that's what I did. I created a section, and then I go with a field and say the owner. I don't know what my other ones are, so let me just get out and see what my users' profiles are. So at least I have a. Maybe I could create a like I don't know how many users I got and all that kind of stuff, right? So.
Right.
Oh, good. I got other users.
You got plenty of users.
Okay. Holy crap. Let me see how many licenses I got. I got 25 Salesforce licenses and 16 of them are used. Wow, this is a heck of a demo org.
Yeah. Well, you have a partner demo org. That's why.
How do you know?
Just something I've read along the way that partner demo orgs have about 25 users.
How much filage do I have? I got 10 gigs of data storage. Wow. That's pretty strong for a demo org. All right. I'm happy now.
You can
So
almost
now I'm going to go.
You can almost run a small business with that.
I don't know how long it lasts, but yeah, I agree. I agree completely. All right. So this one, I'm going to add a filter. And I guess I got to go to advanced, user, profile, name. So now I should not be able to see the information, but I should be able to see because I set it for the profile of HR, custom HR, to see the information. The one I created, only I should see it. So now my job application. It works. I'm not HR, and I'm a system admin. I'm not HR, so I can't see that one. See how the fields are hidden now?
Yeah.
I got my additional fields, but I don't have my other one. I don't know why my other one didn't show up, but I don't really care because it worked the way I wanted it to work. That's sweet.
Yeah.
That works. So yeah, I don't have these other fields.
So that's one way of approaching it. The other way would be condition based on the data that you put in.
Correct. Correct. So I did it. I just did it by. That's right. I could have done it based on the data condition. I just don't know enough about the data to create it on the fly. So I just tried to pick something I do know that's there. So, just a little reminder to admins: you can hide stuff from yourself. Don't forget. Oh, I like it. So there's that. Where's my? Oh, that's what it was. I don't. Oh, I hit it in here. I'm such a knucklehead. If I take a field section, call it and I could say that the name yeah, so you just type the filter. See if this works. My goodness. Yep, there's my system admin section. Nothing in it.
Right.
Because I'm a system admin. I forgot to turn that filter off. Yeah, when you try to do too much too fast, you run into stuff like this. I don't know why I can't see it. I can't. How do I? This. Look at this thing. I can't delete the filter. Let me take the field off and just select. That should do it. All right, I like it. I mean, it's really just adding what we had before for components to fields and sections. But it worked. I like it. So the name field.
Well, the nice thing about it is you can make your page once, filter it, and be done with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have a master page and then filter out the components or the fields that need to be available to the people that need to see them.
Yep. There's my system admin. All right, cool. Yeah, very cool. All right, well, listen, thanks for being here. I'll be back next Monday.
Yeah.
Join if you can. I'm going to keep moving on, and you'll get the next section, which is record types. And after that will be what's after record types. It will be in the description of our after record types. We'll have introduction to business logic, and then preserving data quality. But remember, record types is that thing that controls the page layouts to the same profile. You can have more than one page layout, and you can
Right.
use record type as a controlling factor, if you will, for pick list values. So basically, you can have a master set of pick list values and then only deliver the ones that are needed by that record type. Again, following the philosophy of show them what they need to know so they can do what they need to do and pick less wrong answers. All right, sir. Have a great week.
Thank you. You
Have a
too.
great weekend. I'll talk to you when I talk to you, Gregory. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming in.